Oh, Frank, how happy I am that we finally bought a house. Now we're our own masters. We can do what we want, Mia exclaimed happily. Mia, I'm very happy too. We worked hard for this. I just can't understand what you mean by we're our own masters now. Do you think we weren't before? Frank asked calmly. I just want to say that now we have our own house, and now we will decide how to arrange everything in it ourselves, and we don't have to take anyone's opinion into account. I couldn't stand it if your mother started bossing us around, said Mia bitterly. The man answered nothing, finishing his late dinner, which consisted of lasagna from the supermarket. Mia sighed, shook her head, and turned her gaze to the light gray wallpaper she liked so much. On this day, after coping with all the usual renovation chores, the Palmer couple decided to visit his parents. They just wanted to share their little joy and say, Look, look, we've almost finished all the work on our house. Soon we'll have you over for a housewarming party to celebrate this joyous occasion. Mia brought samples of the fabrics she had chosen for the curtains and upholstered furniture. She also brought pictures of the tiles she had chosen for the bathroom. The parents insisted that a designer they knew come up with everything, but Mia said she already had a few ideas. So, our kitchen will be exactly what I've always dreamed of. And for the living room, we decided to choose the country style, only in a modern design. It's cozy and inexpensive and reminds me of my parents' house. Mia was chatting happily with her parents in law, sharing her ideas, and somehow she didn't notice the change in her mother in law's expression in time. Evelyn's lips had become thin, her eyes squinted. All of this betrayed her displeasure. Live as you please, of course, Evelyn rudely interrupted her daughter in law, who was rummaging through her bag trying to find a lost piece of wallpaper for the living room. Mia looked up, not understanding, and her mother in law took great pleasure in explaining. She reminded her that her friend Daniel is a wonderful designer, and many people wait half a year for their turn to order a design project for their home from him. And for their family, he was willing to make an exception and would even make a discount as a family friend. She reminded her that she had already made arrangements with Daniel, and it would be bad form to let him down like that. But I talked to him, and I didn't like what he suggested. Daniel and I just have a different vision of the interior, that's all. Mia answered honestly, unaware that her frankness had angered her mother in law even more, like a red rag to a bull. Well, it's your house, of course. Except, I'm sorry, what if it turns out like the hydrangeas? My mother in law stretched out. Mia felt as if she'd been doused with cold water. After all, these hydrangeas were a very painful subject for her. The fact was that right after the wedding, the couple had been living in their parents' countryside house for some time, saving and investing all their money in buying the house and renovating it. Her mother in law generously allowed young wife to do her chores and plant whatever she wanted in the garden, including flowers. Mia was overjoyed. She adored flowers and began to create a bed of hydrangeas. Since she had grown up on a ranch, she had been familiar with working with plants since she was a little girl, and she began to work diligently at it. Mia looked forward to seeing the hydrangeas bloom next year. Then my mother in law started bragging. Can you imagine? My flower garden in the countryside house is participating in a contest. If I win, they'll write about me in a magazine. Mia sincerely wished her luck. It was time to leave her parents' countryside house and move into her own house, which was already finishing repairs. Later, they went to visit her parents out of town, and Mia immediately noticed the absence of something. "Where are my hydrangeas?" she asked confusedly. "I had to throw them away. My flower bed won a contest. It was photographed for a magazine. And those hydrangeas were ruining the whole view, like weed bushes. So, as not to spoil the view, I got rid of them." What's the big deal? They wouldn't bloom until a couple of years later anyway. Evelyn replied. Mia cried for the first time in her new family, ran into the garden, and roared until her husband found her, hugged her, and asked what had happened. Then he went to Evelyn to defend his wife, but she stood her ground. Eventually, Frank's father, Adam, also intervened in the conflict and insisted that everyone make up. Frank offered to clearly define a territory in their country house in which only his daughter in law would have dominion. But after that incident, Mia no longer wanted to plant anything there, and she felt uncomfortable in her husband's parents' house, especially now that she had her own house where she could plant whatever she wanted. Even my mother in law's gifts from her garden did not save the situation. "Don't be offended, honey. I want what's best for you. You want to do everything yourself. That's understandable. But then when the renovations are done and you buy new furniture for the house, everything together will look out of place like a saddle on a cow. Because honestly, your choice of kitchen will aesthetically ruin everything else. I'm sorry, but you have absolutely no taste," Evelyn said with a smile. "Let's not fight." Adam tried to cut into the conversation, but Mia wasn't going to answer that and just nodded. Then she reached for the dish. The pie was delicious and said, "Thanks for the advice. I definitely think about it." However, if her mother in law had known her daughter in law better, she would have realized that there was no humility in her words with other people's opinions. No, Mia was simply holding a grudge and determined that there could be no friendship with her husband's mother now. When they returned home, Mia decided to have a serious talk with her lover. "It's just that they dispose of everything. Your mother criticizes me on every occasion. Honestly, I'm already scared of how I'm going to live without asking her opinion about everything." The girl sounded very upset. "Can we talk about it tomorrow?" asked Frank pitifully. But then, realizing that his beloved was very worried, he hurriedly added, "Honey, I agree with you. Sometimes Mom puts too much pressure. Just understand my mother, too. She's used to living her life in such a way that everything has to be under her control." "Yes, honey, it's true. I'm surprised she even agreed to our marriage." "Well, let's find some kind of compromise, okay?" Mia replied after thinking for a while. "Just promise me you won't give her the keys to our house. I don't want her to come over when we're not home." Finally, 3 weeks later, all the trouble was over, and we had a housewarming barbecue. A lot of people showed up, and we had to work hard to feed everyone. In the end, Mia and Frank just ordered extra pizza so they wouldn't have to worry about anyone going hungry because they had never had a barbecue themselves before. "Are they sure they're coming?" Mia asked her husband when half an hour had passed since the party began. "Right, just some urgent business came up on the way. They promised to explain when they got here," Frank replied. Finally, when she heard the doorbell ring, Mia hurried to open it. "Congratulations," Adam said, but the smile on his face was odd, as if he was already very, very uncomfortable about something. "Mia, honey," Evelyn said and handed over a box in a festive wrapper. "Here's that coffee machine you've been talking about so much." It was an expensive gift. Mia didn't know how to behave and... Sorry, Frank told us the secret. Mia actually expected to get a vase or a cookbook as a gift. But when she thanked, she took the box. And what's this? Mia asked, noticing that Adam also had a box in his hands. Just a sample box, replied the father-in-law. Yes, the thing is, honey, he began to tell. What's that smell? Asked Frank, looking out of the hall. Mia, with a gasp, hurried into the kitchen, where indeed her signature peach pie nearly burned. In the meantime, my parents had moved to the terrace, and then there were cries of amazement, and the guests had clearly perked up. Putting the pie on the table, Mia went there too. I wondered what was in that box. Maybe they decided to give them some unnecessary things. That was to be expected, but what Mia saw she didn't expect at all. The box was on the floor, open, and the guests were looking inside it for some reason. He's shy. Let me give him a hot dog. Better cheese, said Luke, Frank's cousin. My kitty likes cheese like a mouse. What's going on here? The landlady was confused. Yes, here. Evelyn smiled with the most guilty expression on her face. Adam found him in the parking lot under the car, but we took him to the clinic, and the vet said he was fine. We could take him home. And I'm allergic to cats. Did you bring me a cat? The lady of the house gasped. In the box sat a gray cat with blue eyes, like a teddy bear. He was obviously not used to this kind of attention and was frightened. He hissed and huddled in the corner of the box. Why, we weren't going to have animals, said Mia. Where else is he going to go? My mother-in-law said. We've already called everyone. Some have dogs, some already have cats, some have young children, and you're free, single. We thought we'd at least taken a kitten for a while we're still looking for owners. Or maybe. Evelyn gave the guests a hard, testing look. The guests shook their heads frantically, and various excuses were heard. It's all right, we'll keep an eye on him for now, Frank suddenly encouraged his mother. Before that, however, as Mia accurately remembered, he would not even agree to an aquarium with fish, because it is a big responsibility. Mia was shocked, but she also knew for sure that she couldn't give up on the cat right now. First, because then literally everyone would decide that she was a callous, soulless, bad person. And secondly, because she just couldn't do that to the little creature. And she also thought that probably nothing like that would happen if the animal stayed with them for a while. The cat seemed very cute and even looked like a British breed. So this handsome fellow was sure to be taken away soon. When the party was over and the guests were gone, Frank went to the pet store because the cat needed a litter box, a bowl, food, toys, and many other things. For the first few days, he hid behind the furniture, only coming out to the litter box, which he got used to right away. Also, the kitten would come out when he was left with a full bowl of food and step aside. Slowly, the new routine began to settle in. Mia called her mother-in-law every day with the same question. How's the search for new owners going? Naturally, she also found out among her acquaintances, including those at work. She worked as a paralegal at a local insurance agency, but no one wanted the cat. Mia sighed, cleaning up after the cat. She fed him, but she didn't take him in her arms. She hardly touched him or even played with him. I just didn't feel the need to. But one day, Frank and Mia had an argument. The reason was ridiculous. They were discussing which new toaster to buy because the old one was in the kitchen now, and they argued. And then somehow they turned to personal grudges. A lot of irritation, worries, inconveniences, and financial debts had accumulated, and they couldn't stop right away. Frank would raise his voice and accuse Mia of being irrational and intrusive about repairs. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I'm tired. You're trivializing my breathing. Frank grabbed his jacket and tangled his sleeves at the same time, He tried to put on his shoes. It didn't work out very well. But he was in a hurry to get out of the house because he had decided to spend the night at his parents' house. "How did you?" Mia burst out. "You swore you loved me." "That's right," said the spouse. "In love, not indulging your whims." Mia wanted to say something else important to her spouse, but her husband just rushed out the door and left on foot. She stood in the hallway for several minutes, hoping that he was about to come back, apologize, and everything would be all right again. But when that didn't happen, she sniffled, sobbed, and burst into tears. She went to the kitchen, and there she poured her tea into the sink. She didn't want to drink their traditional family afternoon tea alone. Suddenly, she wanted to crawl onto the couch under a warm blanket and feel sorry for herself for a long, long time. That's exactly what she did. She cried for a long time, and then, somehow unexpectedly, she dozed off. Mia woke up to the quiet, deep, thick purring of a cat. He'd hardly come near her before, but today he suddenly jumped up on the couch and curled up next to her in a ball. Mia touched the thick, fluffy fur, ran her fingers over it. "Have you come to pity me?" The cat rumbled louder. Mia smiled. Felt so warm and peaceful. The cat got to its feet and took its time to come closer, wagged its tail, and lay down next to her hand. Soon she was asleep again. Mia woke up in the morning and found that Frank was already back. Apparently, he opened the door quietly and decided not to wake her. Her husband was making breakfast, his wife's favorite pancakes. He apologized for being so harsh yesterday. "Mom found a new home for the cat, and some acquaintances have agreed to take him. Today, closer to tonight, they're coming to our place." Frank began to share the news. "No," Mia said firmly. "No what?" Frank interrogated. "I said I wouldn't give the cat away. He's staying with us. His name is Peach now. He's mine now, and let's not talk about it any more." Mia stood there, looking so stubborn and determined. It was a look her husband had never noticed before. He wanted to say something else. In particular, he wanted to let her know that it would be uncomfortable to say no to the acquaintances her mother had found as a family for the kitten. But then he thought about the fact that there was nothing worse than upsetting his beloved wife, and acquaintances were unlikely to mind much. Frank had always appreciated that Mia cherished his feelings and respected his wishes, so he wanted to do the same for her. Mia understood logically that these events had no direct connection to each other, but she couldn't help but notice that something had changed with the arrival of the pet. She had a four-legged tail, a playful and kind friend. It became easier for her to protect her possessions from her mother-in-law without scandals and quarrels. She and Evelyn agreed that visits to their home would be coordinated in advance, and she wouldn't constantly be giving advice on what they should cook for dinner and how to care for the lawn. "Just don't think things will go the way you want them to now," said her mother-in-law one day when the whole family got together at the countryside house, and even Peach was brought in. The cat was walking on a leash because Mia was worried about him getting away. "And I don't expect that," she replied, habitually scratching the cat behind the ear. "It's enough for me that you and I respect each other's personal boundaries, that we not only listen, but that we hear." "And what are you so smart about?" sighed Evelyn. "Okay, so be it," she said, looking closely at Mia. "It's enough for me that my son is happy with you, and it's all that matters to me." "Peach, Peach, come to me." And the cat, who before was not particularly ready to go to mother-in-law's arms, this time decided to come over and rumbled loudly and velvetly, showing his affection.